Imagine working in a millionaire's mansion, and walking straight into a nightmare. A helpless little girl in a wheelchair, her own grandmother tormenting her, and everyone else pretending nothing was wrong. But on her very first week, the new maid did something no one else dared. She defended the child. What happened next uncovered a dark family secret that had been buried for years, and it will leave you shocked. Emily Sanders took the stairs two at a time, the polished walnut steps reflecting the crystal chandelier's light and fractured diamonds. She had learned in 48 hours that everything inside the Whitmore estate gleamed: floors without scuffs, brass without tarnish, glass without a single fingerprint. Everything except the sound of a child crying. The sobs were coming from the second floor, from the blue guest room at the end of the hall where the late Mrs. Whitmore used to keep her sewing machine. Emily knew the map of this house already, not because anyone had taken time to explain it, but because that was the kind of thing you learn when you're a maid who pays attention. Which doors stuck a little, which windows rattled in a west wind, which rugs liked to slide on lacquered floors. It was only her third day, but a lifetime of careful observation had always been her best tool. She reached the landing and froze. The crying wasn't steady, it came in aching bursts, as if the child ran out of air between each sob. A woman's voice cut through the sound, sharp as the edge of a knife. "Stop it! Stop crying! You were born broken. At least don't be a crybaby, too!" Emily pushed the door open. The first things her eyes found were the curtains, blue damask, pulled back to show a sweep of elm trees past the balcony, and the second thing was a small wheelchair tipped slightly askew on the rug, its brakes off, its seat shining under afternoon sun. Beside it stood Margaret Whitmore, in a pearl-gray dress with a string of real pearls and the posture of a woman who had never once been asked to bend. Her silver hair was arranged in a precise shell, and her mouth was a thin, careful line. On the floor, halfway between the bed and the chair, Lily Whitmore crawled. She was small for 6, with an oval face and tawny hair escaping from a crooked ponytail. Her dress, yellow cotton with daisies, bunched and wrinkled as she reached on her hands and arms, dragging herself inch by inch. Where her legs should have extended, her thighs ended abruptly above the knees, covered by soft knit leggings. The skin where fabric met air was pale and tender, the way skin looks when it's never known as shoe. "Please, Grandma," Lily panted, stretching. "Please help me up." Margaret nudged the wheelchair with one pointed toe and pushed it farther away. "You need to learn. Out there, no one will pity you." Emily didn't think. She moved. "Hi, Princess," she said gently, dropping to her knees to keep her voice level with Lily's. "Let me give you a hand." Lily flinched, bringing her forearms up to hide her face. "Don't look at me. I'm ugly." Emily's heart pinched. She had known cruelty, but never delivered so precisely. She set her palms flat on the rug so Lily could see they were empty, safe. "Ugly?" Emily's voice softened. "You have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen." It wasn't a trick line, it was true. Lily's eyes were a stormy blue-gray, rimmed red from crying but bright as lake water in sun. Lily's hands lowered an inch, then 2. The sobs hitched, paused. No one had ever told her she was beautiful. That much Emily could tell from the way the words landed like an unfamiliar gift. "May I?" Emily asked, holding out her arms. Lily nodded, a small, desperate motion. Emily lifted her carefully, letting Lily's arms loop around her neck, and settled the girl into the chair. She adjusted the belt, checked the footplate out of habit she didn't need, and then remembered, flush of sorrow, that there was no need. She straightened the little cardigan, smoothed the hem. "There," Emily said, exhaling. "Back on your princess throne." The smallest smile, trembly but unmistakable, appeared at the corner of Lily's mouth. "Who do you think you are?" Margaret's voice cracked like a whip. She crossed the rug in 2 steps and seized Emily's forearm hard enough to bruise. "Do not help her. She is useless if she cannot learn. You are paid to clean, not to play dolls with." She clipped the word off, but Emily heard it anyway. "A cripple. On your knees." Emily's instincts screamed to push back, to say no, but Lily's eyes were wide and frightened. Another fight would scare her more. Emily knelt. The rug was plush, the way expensive rugs are, and still the floor was harder than it looked. Margaret pointed toward a faint smear near the bed, clear polish residue from when Emily had buffed the baseboards that morning. With your hands, Margaret said. No cloth. Perhaps then you'll learn your place. It was humiliation, medieval and deliberate. Emily had cleaned motel rooms at midnight for managers who never learned her name. She had squeegeed grease from diner floors while the cook smoked at the back door. None of it felt like this, the deliberate cruelty of it, engineered for an audience of one small, shaking child. Emily lowered her hands and scrubbed. The rug fibers bit into her skin. The lemon of the floor polish mixed with the salt of her tears. She focused on the tiny, stupid smear until it vanished, and then kept moving her hands so that Lily wouldn't have to watch her freeze. A sound cut through the room, the front door downstairs opening, the heavy thunk of it, followed by measured footsteps across the marble foyer and up the stairs. The air in the room changed, like the pressure shift before a storm. Gabriel Whitmore filled the doorway, tall, in a navy suit, his tie loosened as if he'd pulled it in the car. He had the solid presence of a man used to making decisions other people obey. His gaze moved from Emily's scraped hands to Lily's reddened face to Margaret's rigid posture. What is going on here? His voice was even but iron flat and too hard. Margaret's expression switched so quickly it made Emily dizzy, disdain melting into concern. Oh, thank heavens you're home, Gabriel. This girl was interfering with Lily's development. I was correcting her. Gabriel looked at his daughter. Lily's cheeks were blotchy, her lashes clumped with tears. Daddy, she whispered, the single word tripping on a sob. Gabriel dropped to one knee. I'm here, sweetheart. He leaned closer, and Lily angled her lips toward his ear. Grandma hid my chair again, she breathed. Gabriel's gaze flicked from the chair, parked in the middle of the room like a taunt, back to his mother-in-law. A muscle in his jaw worked. Why was Lily's chair across the room? I was teaching her independence, Margaret said. In the world beyond these gates, no one will carry her. Independence isn't learned by cruelty, Gabriel said, too low for anyone but Emily to hear, and stood. Emily, are you all right? He knew her name. It startled her enough that she almost forgot the sting in her palms. Yes, sir, she said, and willed her voice not to shake. Good. Lily, do you want to go downstairs? We can read in the library. Lily darted a look at Margaret, and then at Emily. Can Emily come? Margaret inhaled sharply. Gabriel didn't look away from his daughter. If Emily has a few minutes, yes. 5. Margaret snapped. She has work. 5 will do, Gabriel said. He lifted Lily's chair handles and eased it toward the hall, and Emily fell in behind, hands curled to hide the rug burns. In the hallway mirror, she caught a ghosted reflection of Margaret's face, controlled, calculating, something cold moving behind the eyes. Downstairs, the library smelled like paper and cedar. Light fell in a steady band across an old leather sofa. Gabriel parked the chair beside it, and crouched again so he and Lily were level. Which book? He asked. Lily pointed shyly to a dog-eared copy of Charlotte's Web. As Gabriel read, his voice surprisingly gentle for a man who just stared down a storm, Lily's shoulders unknotted. Emily stood where she could see both of them and nowhere else, the proper place for help no one sees. When the chapter ended, Gabriel closed the book and looked up at Emily. Thank you, he said simply. For helping my daughter. Emily's throat tightened. Of course. Margaret's heels clicked in the hall, a metronome counting down to the end of Lily's piece. Gabriel glanced at the doorway, then back at Emily. I'll speak with my mother-in-law, he said, voice even again. You don't need to be in the middle of that. I put myself there, Emily said. Because she needed help. Something complicated moved through his expression, respect maybe, threaded with worry. Noted. After dinner, formal for everyone else, a tray in the kitchen for Emily, Gabriel found her wiping down the stainless counters until they shone like ponds under moonlight. The house had fallen into that hush big houses get after 8, air vents whispering, the old clock in the foyer ticking, the faint clink of ice from somewhere distant. "I'm sorry about earlier," he said from the doorway. "Margaret, she can be intense." Emily set the cloth down. The red on her palms had darkened to small crescents. "Mr. Whitmore, I don't want to be out of line. But what Lily hears matters. Words stick." She didn't say, "They stick like burrs under skin. They whisper to you at midnight." He followed her glance to her hands. "Did she make you scrub the rug with your—" He cut himself off, closed his eyes for a beat, opened them with resolve cooling into place. "It won't happen again." Emily nodded. She wanted to believe that. But the echo of Margaret's voice was still in the wallpaper, and houses hold echoes better than they hold light. When Emily climbed the back stairs to the small attic room the agency had given her, she paused on the second-floor landing. The blue guest room's door was shut, a sliver of light at the bottom, the shape of a shadow crossing that sliver and then stopping as if listening. Emily's skin prickled. In her narrow room, she washed her hands, the sting a steady fire. She sat on the edge of the iron bed and stared at the ceiling, mapping the house again in her head. Lily's room at the far end. The linen closet beside it. The little elevator that had been installed after the accident, running quiet as a breath. Margaret's suite across the hall from Gabriel's office, the one with the locked liquor cabinet, and the antique portrait that never seemed to look away. Emily pulled her phone from her pocket and set an alarm for 6 a.m. Then she did what she had always done when life was bigger than she was. She made a plan. She would keep close to Lily whenever she could without breaking rules. She would watch where Margaret went and when she went there. She would learn the rhythms of this place until she knew them like a song, and when the song changed, she would hear it first. Across the house, a child turned in her sleep, the soft squeak of wheelchair tires against wood. Somewhere, a door clicked. Somewhere else, a woman's heels tracked a late-night patrol. Emily lay back and folded her stinging hands over her stomach. "Tomorrow," she whispered into the dark. "Tomorrow I'll do better." Down the hall, a lamp snapped off. The Whitmore estate fell into its curated quiet, every surface gleaming, every secret tucked neatly out of sight, except the one Emily had already seen, a little girl taught to crawl when all she needed was a hand. The next morning the Whitmore estate woke under a peal of winter light, pale and clean. Emily clocked in through the service entrance at 7 a.m., the way the agency handbook said, and took the back stairs to the second floor with a basket of fresh linens balanced on her hip. Halfway down the hall she stopped. Lily's door, usually cracked an inch the way little kids prefer, was shut tight. A strip of light glowed at the threshold. Emily knocked softly. "Hey, princess?" "It's Emily." A small voice quivered from the other side. "You really came back?" "Of course." Emily pressed her shoulder to the panel as the lock clicked. Lily sat in her chair with her cheeks puffy from crying, a stuffed rabbit limp in her lap. "Grandma said you ran away because I'm too much trouble," Lily whispered. "I'm here, aren't I?" Emily loosened a wisp of hair from Lily's eyes. On the vanity sat a forgotten play makeup kit, kid-safe gloss and a little pot of powder with a star-shaped brush. Emily glanced toward the door and then back to Lily. "You ever play dress-up?" Lily's eyes flickered. "Grandma says makeup is for normal girls." Emily popped the gloss open and dabbed the faintest sheen on Lily's bottom lip. "What Grandma says isn't a town ordinance." She dusted a blush kiss onto each cheek, so light it was almost pretend. "Okay. Mirror time." Lily rolled toward the vanity. The girl in the glass looked exactly like Lily and somehow braver. "Is that me?" "That is the most beautiful version of you," Emily said. "The one I already see." The door flew wide, banging to stop. Margaret swept in like a cold front, eyes locking on Lily's face. "What nonsense is this?" She snatched a handkerchief from the dresser and scrubbed Lily's cheeks hard enough to erase the faint color. "Do you think paint hides defects? Your mother couldn't bear to look at you, and no amount of gloss." "Don't talk to her like that," Emily said the words out before she could pull them back. Margaret turned, handkerchief crumpling. "You will not correct me in my house." "You're in his house," Emily said before her fear could stop her. And Lily's. Margaret's jaw tightened. Caroline drove herself into a guardrail because she couldn't live with the shame. From the hallway came a measured tread, then Gabriel's frame filled the doorway. For a heartbeat he didn't move, he just listened. Caroline didn't run from her daughter, he said, voice careful. She was on her way to the orthopedist at Children's that morning. I found the appointment card in the center console. Margaret's composure cracked and reset. You don't remember correctly. The accident confused you. I remember exactly, Gabriel said. The steadiness in his voice was new and heavy. He crossed to Lily and knelt to her eye level. None of this is your fault. Your mom loved you more than anything. Lily blinked hard, trying to hold back a fresh wave of tears. Margaret straightened, exhaling sharply. As a consequence for this scene, the chair goes away for the day. No, it doesn't, Gabriel said, rising. The chair stays. In fact, we'll keep a second one in her room from now on. He nodded to Emily. Would you make sure it's delivered? Yes, sir. Gabriel, Margaret warned, but he was already wheeling Lily toward the hall. By afternoon, peace returned in small pockets. In the south garden, where the ground stayed a degree warmer, Lily and Emily traced sunlight labyrinths between hedges. Lily's laugh, quiet, like testing a note, slipped out when Emily taught her to toss a foam ring and bank it off the armrest into her lap like a carnival game. From the terrace, voices. Emily glanced up and saw Margaret conferring with a man in a dark suit. He carried himself like someone used to sitting at the head of tables. When he came down the steps, he offered a thin smile without offering his hand. You must be the new hire, he said. Robert Galvin. I handle the Whitmore family's legal affairs. Emily Sanders. Mrs. Whitmore tells me you've taken a very active role with Lily. The word active came out shaped like problematic. I help when I can. Children with significant disabilities require professional care, Robert said. Occupational therapists. Behavioral specialists. People with qualifications. I understand, Emily said evenly. And I follow directions. Good, he said. Keep doing that. He nodded at Lily, at the ring game, at the easy smile on her face, as if joy were a bad precedent, then drifted back toward the veranda. When he was gone, Lily tugged Emily's sleeve. I don't like him. You don't have to, Emily said. You just have to be you. Later, in the kitchen, Grace Becker, the cook who had been in the house since long before the new appliances, measured flour with the authority of a judge. She waited until the back door eased shut and the hallway had swallowed Margaret's footsteps. You be real careful around Mrs. Whitmore and Mr. Galvin, she said without looking up. I notice, Emily said. She scrubbed a mixing bowl until it squeaked. After Miss Caroline passed, those two decided all the clocks run on their time. Grace went on. Mr. Whitmore's always at the office. He don't see the daily. What's the daily? Emily asked. Grace's mouth pinched. Moving Lily's chair. Locking her in that dark, little closet off the bath for quiet time. Saying things that sink like stones. It's worse when no one's looking. She set the whisk down and finally met Emily's eyes. Today was the first time I've seen that child truly smile in months. Because of you. So, thank you. But also, watch your back. Confidences loosened other ones. Were you here the day Caroline died? Emily asked softly. Grace's hand stilled. I was. She left early, light on her feet. Said she had the orthopedist and then one quick stop. I asked where? She said the clerk's office. Grace swallowed. Said she had to check some papers. What papers? Didn't say. But here's the part that don't sit right. Mr. Galvin showed up here before the sheriff's call came. And the car went to the yard the very next morning. No chance for Mr. Whitmore to see it. Mrs. Whitmore said it was too traumatic. Grace shook her head. Maybe it was all bad luck piled up. Maybe not. The dishwasher hummed. A dog barked 2 properties over. The walls of the grand house seemed to listen. That evening Emily carried Lily's laundry up the back stair. At the landing she paused out of habit and glanced toward the long hall. In the glass of a darkened picture frame she caught a reflection, Margaret standing at her bedroom window across the corridor, motionless, as if she were counting who passed. Emily kept walking, the laundry basket suddenly heavy. At bedtime, Gabriel knocked on the open door of Lily's room. The girl had drawn herself small under a quilt with stitched bluebirds, the rabbit tucked beneath her chin. The tear stains had faded, but the skin under her eyes was tired in a way 6-year-olds shouldn't know. "Daddy?" Lily said. "I'm here." He sat on the edge of the bed. "How's the brave girl?" She hesitated, glancing toward the hall. "Sometimes Grandma gets mad. She says I'm ugly? That Mommy left because of me." Gabriel felt the old wound and the fresh anger meet. He smoothed her hair back. "None of that is true." He lowered his voice. "Listen to me. There's nothing wrong with you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." "Will Emily stay?" Lily asked, small and serious. "If she wants to," Gabriel said, and the words surprised him by how much he wanted them to be true. "I'll make sure you're safe." In the corridor something shifted, floorboards speaking in the language of old houses. Margaret, perhaps, or the draft from the rear stair. Gabriel stood and kissed Lily's forehead. "Sleep, ladybug." Downstairs, in the mudroom hallway where the scent of lemon oil gave way to cold air and concrete, Emily was wiping scuffs from the baseboard when Gabriel found her. "I owe you an apology," he said. "It's not your job to absorb Margaret's temper." He glanced at Emily's hands. The rug burns had darkened into small crescent moons. "That won't happen again." Emily nodded. "Thank you." He started to turn away, then stopped. "Were you with Lily when she laughed in the garden?" "For a minute there," Emily said. "She forgot to be afraid." Gabriel's gaze flicked up, the kind of look a drowning man gives the surface. "I noticed." After lights out, the house settled. Emily detoured past Lily's window on her way to the attic stairs. The blinds were angled just enough for a child to see stars. Emily tapped once on the glass, soft, the shared language of conspirators. The slats shifted. Lily's eyes, bright in the thin night, found Emily's. Her lips shaped a thank you too small to hear. Emily pressed 2 fingers to the glass, then backed away. As she reached the top step to her room, she heard voices rise below, Margaret's, low and sharp, a man's, measured. She eased her doors shut and sat on the bed with her back against it, heart thudding. Somewhere in this house there were answers, tucked in a drawer, buried in a ledger, caught in the old wiring of grief and greed. Caroline had gone to the clerk's office to check some papers. Robert had arrived before the news. A chair had been pushed across a room on purpose. Emily pulled a spiral notebook from her duffel and started a list, the way she always did when fear threatened to make her small. Children's hospital orthopedist appointment, find records. Clerk's office visit date, purpose, file? Car to salvage too fast, tow receipt? Security cameras? Front hall, upstairs corridor. Spare wheelchair delivered tomorrow. Keep Lily close. Watch Margaret. Watch Robert. She capped the pen, set the notebook on the nightstand, and clicked off the light. The chandelier's ghost still chased itself across the ceiling in the reflection from the lawn lamps outside. Emily stared until the room steadied around her. "I'll do better tomorrow," she whispered again, not as a wish this time, but a vow. By late morning the Whitmore driveway looked like a dealership lot, sleek sedans nosed against the boxwoods, exhaust making small ghosts in the chill. Emily paused at the butler's pantry door, a stack of iron napkins in her hands, and heard the tight murmur of serious voices flowing from the formal living room. She set the napkins down and drifted to the archway just far enough to see reflections in the glass of a framed landscape. Robert Galvin stood with his back to the fireplace, legal pad against his cuff. On the sofa sat a woman in a navy blazer, school district crest on her lapel, and beside her, a man Emily recognized from the pediatric rehab clinic brochure and Lily's nightstand. Children with profound orthopedic differences benefit from structured, specialized environments, Robert was saying smoothly. Our recommended facility is unparalleled. The woman in navy folded her hands. And you believe Lily's father can't provide what she needs at home? Margaret's voice entered like a blade wrapped in silk. My son-in-law is devoted, but he works long hours, and lately he's been influenced by inappropriate staff. The child is being filled with fantasies. The facility is licensed, therapeutic, safe. Robert continued. It would be healthier. Streamlined. And the father agrees? The woman asked. Mr. Whitmore is still grieving, Margaret said quickly. He hasn't entirely recovered from Caroline's death. His judgment is tender. A second woman's voice, older, skeptical, cut in. And the trust? Robert didn't miss a beat. Any transition to institutional care simplifies administration. As maternal grandmother, Mrs. Whitmore could assume interim guardianship over Lily's estate, purely to ensure continuity. Emily's hand found her own wrist and squeezed until it hurt. They weren't just talking about therapy. They were talking about removing Lily from her home and control of a fortune. Chairs scraped. People rose. Emily slid back into the pantry as coats rustled through the hall. When the front door thunked and the cars rolled away one by one, she held her breath and listened. Only 2 sets of footsteps remained. Do you think Gabriel will accept it? Robert asked, his register lower now, closer to his real voice. He'll have to, Margaret replied. Especially after what we're going to do about his little maid. What's the play? We prove she's poison. By week's end he'll beg me to get rid of her. Emily's skin went cold. She grabbed a dish towel and began drying a spotless glass just to give her hands a job. Robert's shadow darkened the pantry doorway. Emily, isn't it? His smile didn't reach his eyes. We had quite a productive meeting about Lily's future. She didn't turn. I only want what's best for her. Then you'll understand that sometimes people who overstep create complications. He leaned in as if to admire the row of polished crystal. In old houses, accidents happen. Emily faced him fully. I know how to watch my feet. Excellent, he said lightly. Keep them under you. He drifted away, leaving the scent of expensive cologne and something sour. Grace found Emily rinsing coffee cups with more force than necessary. Breathe, the cook murmured. Whatever they're brewing, it'll come to a boil soon enough. It came the next morning over coffee. Gabriel walked into the kitchen with his tie in his hand and worry set deep between his brows. Margaret stood at the island, a velvet pouch pinched between 2 immaculate fingers. Gabriel, she said grave. I checked the safe last night. Several of Caroline's pieces are missing. The pearl choker. The diamond drops. Someone has stolen from this family. Gabriel's gaze flicked to the pouch. Missing? Are you certain? I am. Margaret let a beat pass. The only new variable in this household is the maid. Her name is Emily, Gabriel said. But doubt slid into his expression like a draft through a gap. He'd known Emily 3 days. He didn't know her at all. Robert appeared as if he'd been waiting outside the door. We should handle this discreetly. A simple search of staff quarters will clear the air. If nothing turns up, we'll apologize and move on. Emily, carrying a breakfast tray toward the library, froze. She met Gabriel's eyes. Something in her chest folded. If you need to look through my room, she said quietly, do it. The attic room felt smaller with 3 people in it. Gabriel stood near the window, jaw tight. Robert went through the tiny dresser with a practiced efficiency, then the closet, uniforms, 2 thrift store blouses, a frayed duffel. He tugged open the bedside drawer, paused, and made a small sound of discovery. Here we are. He lifted the velvet pouch as if it were a snake he charmed. Inside, pearls glowed like moons. Diamonds winked hard. Emily's breath left her body. That's not mine. It sounded ridiculous in the air. What thief ever says otherwise? Gabriel picked up Caroline's engagement ring, platinum band, a shallow cushion cut that had lived a lifetime on someone else's hand, and stared at it like it might tell him the truth. He swayed a fraction, grief and fury colliding. I've never even seen that pouch before, Emily said, voice splintering. I swear to God. From the doorway a small voice broke. Daddy? Lily sat in her chair, rabbit in her lap, eyes huge. Why is Emily crying? Back to your room, Gabriel said too quickly, because he couldn't bear her seeing any version of this. Grace's sensible shoes thudded up the last step. She took in the tableau, Robert with the pouch, Emily Gray with shock, Gabriel with the ring, and set her jaw. Mr. Whitmore, she said. I saw Mr. Galvin on the bedroom level after 11 last night. He doesn't usually come upstairs. Robert's smile thinned. I was reviewing documents. Which he needed from the maid's nightstand? Grace asked. Gabriel dragged a hand down his face. Enough. He turned to Emily. Do you mind if I check something? She shook her head. At that point, consent was just air moving. In his office, Gabriel keyed a code into the security console, a panel Emily had walked past a dozen times without seeing. He scrubbed backward through hours of footage. The front hall camera showed nothing unusual. The mudroom feed rolled silent night and motionless brooms. Then the upstairs corridor, grainy, black and white, but clear enough, came into view. At 11:37 p.m., Robert Galvin stepping off the landing, pausing at the attic stair, glancing down the hall, then taking the last flight up. The camera didn't show inside Emily's room, but it caught him coming back down 7 minutes later, the outline of a small object in his hand before he tucked it into his jacket. Gabriel exhaled a sound that wasn't a word. Back in the attic, he set the velvet pouch on the quilt and looked at Robert. Why were you in her room last night? Robert didn't blink. I wanted to check if she was the kind of girl who keeps company overnight. For Lily's safety. You planted my wife's jewelry, Gabriel said, the kettle whistle of his temper finally breaking. To frame her. Robert's mask slipped, just a fraction, enough for contempt to show beneath. I did what was necessary to protect this family from a gold-digging opportunist. Get out, Gabriel said. Gabriel, Margaret began, ice over steel. Let's be rational. Out, he repeated louder. Both of you. My house. My decision. Robert's gaze cut to Emily, a promise of future trouble in it. You're making a mistake. He moved past Grace without meeting her eye. Margaret lifted her chin. You will regret humiliating your elders. Go, Gabriel said, every muscle carved with restraint. They went. The house stood very still. Down the hall, a clock struck the half hour like a slow heartbeat. On the attic bed, the velvet pouch lay open, jewels dull in the morning light. Gabriel turned to Emily. All the fury leaked out at once, leaving wreckage. I'm sorry, he said raw. I knew better than to doubt you, and I still. You needed proof, Emily said. Her hands had started shaking only now that the danger had passed. Now you have it. Lily's wheelchair hummed softly in the hall as Grace pushed her forward. The little girl craned her neck around the doorframe. Is it okay? She asked, voice barely there. It's okay, Gabriel said, and for the first time he felt like maybe he could make that true. He knelt and opened his arms. Lily rolled into them, Rabbit pressing between them like a witness. See? Lily told Emily solemnly. I told them you're good. Emily's laugh came out wet. Thank you for the reference, ma'am. Grace sniffed and looked anywhere but at her own watery eyes. I'll make cocoa, she announced to the room and no one in particular, and clomped away. In the hush that followed, Gabriel straightened. He looked older than he had yesterday, and clearer. Robert's off the payroll, he said. And Margaret. His jaw tightened. I'll handle Margaret. You can't do it alone, Emily said quietly. You shouldn't have to. Something unspoken passed between them, something as simple as we're on the same side and as complicated as everything else boiling underneath. Gabriel nodded once. From somewhere downstairs a door shut hard. Margaret's car engine revved a note too high. Emily caught the way Gabriel's eyes tracked the sound until it faded. He turned back to them. There's more here, he said. Caroline. The papers. The clerk's office. I can feel it like a loose board under a rug. Emily rested her scraped palms against the bed frame to steady herself. Then we pry up the rug. Lily's face brightened the way it always did when a plan had a path. Can we do it together? Gabriel smiled at his daughter, a thin, tired thing that still reached his eyes. Together is how we do it from now on. Across town, in a parking lot nobody who mattered ever paid attention to, Robert dialed a number he knew by muscle memory. When Margaret answered, he didn't bother with greetings. He threw me out. Then we go to the next step, she said. Her voice was no longer silk. It was glass. If we cannot separate them with lies, we'll use force. Robert looked at his reflection in the windshield and adjusted his tie. Understood. Neither of them saw the security camera mounted over the deli's back door, or the way it captured the angle of Robert's face when he said it. Back at the estate, Grace set steaming mugs on the library table, and Emily wrapped Lily's fingers around warm ceramic. The three of them sat close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Coco truce, Lily declared solemnly. Coco truce, Gabriel echoed, and he meant more than the words covered. Under the polished floors and the curated quiet, a line had been drawn. By the time the house quieted after the confrontation upstairs, the Whitmore estate had the brittle calm of a museum after closing, everything in place, nothing at peace. Emily carried fresh towels down the corridor and stopped outside a door she'd never seen opened since her first day, Caroline's old room at the very end. The handle turned under her fingers. It wasn't locked. Inside, the light came thin through shears and dust. The room had been staged for absence. Bed made, pillows plumped, white sheets draped over the dressing chair and a small writing desk near the window. On the vanity, silver-backed brushes waited beneath a film you could write a name in. Picture frames stood in quiet formation, Caroline holding a swaddled Lily, Gabriel laughing in a way he hadn't since Emily met him, a blurred candid of the three of them on some windy pier. Emily started with the obvious places. Top vanity drawer, the nightstand, under the knitting basket on the chair. Nothing but a tangle of old receipts, and a lipstick gone to chalk. She moved to the dresser, sliding out folded scarves one by one until her fingertips caught on the edge of something stiff beneath the bottom liner. She peeled the paper back. A letter, cream envelope, Caroline's cursive on the front, for Gabriel, if I cannot say this aloud. Emily's hands trembled as she opened it. My love. If you are reading this, something has happened. I have learned things about people very close to us. I need more proof, but if I don't make it back today, go to the place where we kept our dreams. You'll find what you need there. Protect Lily. She may be in danger too. See. The place where we kept our dreams. Emily glanced around the room as if the words might point like a compass needle. Place. Kept. Dreams. Memory flashed. Grace saying Caroline used to write. Lily telling Emily once that there was a fairy room, where Mommy read stories to Daddy before the baby came. Where? Tires crunched on gravel outside. Doors shut. Voices, Margaret's clipped staccato and a man's lower growl, carried up the stairs. No time. Emily slipped the letter into her apron pocket and moved to the closet just as the bedroom door opened. I knew someone would go digging, Margaret said, and the closet's louvered slats gave Emily a thin, slatted view of the room. Robert followed, tie loosened, legal polish dulled by anger. Are you certain she hid something in here? He asked, running a hand along the dresser top as if feeling for tripped wires. She told me she had figured things out, Margaret said, yanking a drawer out so hard its stops protested. But we never found it. Maybe she was bluffing. Robert tried the nightstand and came up with nothing. What's your plan for the maid? Whitmore threw me out. The same plan as before, Margaret said. Accidents happen in old houses. And after that, the child goes where she belongs. With me. Robert's mouth tilted in a humorless smile. You never lack nerve. The closet was suddenly too small for breath. Emily pressed her palms to her knees and counted, 1, 2, 3, until their voices receded and the door shut. She waited another full minute, then stepped out, legs shaky, and crossed the hall at an ear run. She found Gabriel in his office with the security feed open again, replaying Robert's nocturnal visit like he could rewind all of it out of existence. He looked up when he heard her, and the hard set of his shoulders eased by a notch at the sight of her face. "I found this in Caroline's dresser," Emily said, placing the letter on his desk. "She wrote it before the crash?" He read, once fast, then again slower, his thumb on the phrase "where we kept our dreams." He lifted his head, something fierce and fragile moving through his expression. "She had a room she loved," he said. "Upstairs in the old attic dormer. We called it the dream room because she talked about writing our story there." He shoved back from the desk. "Come on." They took the narrow back stair to the third floor, the one staff used to avoid crossing the family hall. At the end, a low door waited behind a hanging tapestry. Gabriel tugged the old key from a nail in the molding and turned it. The lock gave with a tired sigh. The room beyond was small and bright even in winter light, a dormer window, a little desk made from a repurposed sewing table, a corkboard with yellowing notes still tacked at odd angles. A blanket was thrown over a love seat, as if someone had forgotten to fold it on their way to answer the phone. Gabriel went straight to the desk. In the middle drawer, beneath a stack of drafts covered in Caroline's neat edits, lay a manila envelope thicker than a novel, sealed with a strip of blue tape. In Caroline's hand, if needed, delivered to Detective Martinez, County Major Crimes. Gabriel broke the seal. Inside were bank statements showing small siphons that added up to fortunes, trust ledgers with margins filled in a different handwriting than the originals, and copies of property title papers with dates that didn't line up. At the bottom lay a certified copy of his own birth certificate, and custodial papers filed when he was a toddler, parents listed as Edward and Helen Whitmore. Petition for guardianship by Margaret Holloway Whitmore, granted after a single hearing. He sat down hard on the love seat. "She wasn't my mother by blood," he said, the words like stones in his mouth. Emily sat beside him without touching the mound of documents, letting the paperwork's weight settle by itself. "She raised you," Emily said softly. "And then she used that place to take what she wanted." Gabriel's eyes flashed wet, and then cleared with a decision that looked like it might hold. "We take this to Martinez," he said, tapping the detective's card paper clipped inside. "All of it." Footsteps sounded on the stairs, heels fast. Emily's body reacted before her brain did. She closed the envelope, slid it back into the drawer, and tugged the drawer shut. Gabriel covered the keyhole with his palm just as a shadow crossed under the low door. "Gabriel?" Margaret's voice floated thin through the wood. "Are you up there?" Emily put her finger to her lips. Gabriel stood, glanced around, and in 2 long strides reached the tapestry. He stepped out, pulling the door nearly closed behind him, and dropped the key back onto its nail as if he just passed by. "Looking for me?" he asked, voice light enough to pass inspection. Margaret's gaze flicked from his hand to the tapestry's shifting edge and back. For a heartbeat, Emily thought they were caught. Then Margaret smiled like a portrait in a museum, painted kindness over hard eyes. "I wanted a word about Lily's schedule," she said. "We should talk about appropriate environments." "We will," Gabriel said. "Not now." Her smile thinned. "Don't leave me out of decisions about my family." "Not your family," he said, so softly Emily barely heard it. Margaret took 1 step closer. "Careful, Gabriel. You're emotional. You're making mistakes. People will get hurt." He didn't budge. "Go downstairs." Margaret looked past him down the stairwell and sked as if at a scuff on marble. "As you wish." Her heels snapped away. When the hall was empty again, Gabriel exhaled the breath he'd been holding, slipped back inside, and helped Emily slide the envelope into her canvas tote beneath a folded sweater. "We'll copy everything for the detective," he said. "And until then, this doesn't leave you." "It's safer with you," Emily said. "It's safer with the person Margaret dismisses as help," he countered. "She watches me. She underestimates you." They eased out, locked the door, hid the key, and parted on the landing, Gabriel toward the front stairs, Emily toward the service corridor. At the corner, Emily almost collided with Grace, who was climbing up with a basket of folded laundry, and a look that said she'd been listening without meaning to. "Whatever you're about to do," Grace whispered, "do it quick." "We're taking the papers to Detective Martinez," Emily said under her breath. "He was Caroline's contact." "Good," Grace said. "Because the house is whispering, and it ain't saying kind things." They didn't make it off the property that afternoon. Margaret called a family conference in the formal living room, no outsiders, which in her lexicon meant everyone but her. When Gabriel refused without Lily present, she smiled and suggested a safer compromise. "Let's postpone until tomorrow. I'll make some calls tonight." Emily felt the prickle in those words like a low electrical hum. That evening, after Lily had been read to and kissed goodnight and settled with her rabbit under the bluebird quilt, Emily and Gabriel met in the back garden beneath the oak where Lily liked to chase sunlight with her chair. The cold bit through Emily's sweater. Gabriel shrugged out of his coat and draped it over her shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world, and for a half-second their hands stayed on the same fabric, warm through wool. "We go first thing," he said. "I'll drop Lily at school, then the station. Martinez can advise us how to proceed without tipping Margaret off." "Margaret already smells smoke," Emily said. "She'll look for fire. Then we hurry." Gabriel glanced up at the lit windows, Lily's room, the landing, the library, like he could will the walls to hold. "I'll lock the second wheelchair in her room. Grace will sit outside her door." Emily nodded. "I'll keep my phone on. If anything." They both heard it at the same time, a muffled thump above them, then the scrape of a small wheel against wood. They looked up. Lily's shade flickered as if someone had passed in front of the lamp. "Probably the rabbit falling," Gabriel said, forcing an exhale. "I'll check." They climbed the stairs together. Grace was in the hall, knitting set aside, feet flat on the floor, alert. "She just turned over," Grace said. "I heard her humming." Gabriel cracked the door. Lily blinked at him sleepily from the bed, rabbit ear mashed against her cheek. "Daddy?" "Just checking," he whispered. "Sleep." He closed the door and let his shoulders fall an inch. "Tomorrow," he said to Emily again, like a spell this time. "We do it tomorrow." Downstairs, the grandfather clock told 9. In the kitchen, Grace washed 2 mugs and set the kettle out for morning. On the veranda, beyond the hedges, a figure moved in the dark and then stilled, listening to the house turn itself down for the night. Near midnight, Emily woke in the attic room with the nauseous certainty that something in the air had shifted, the way you can feel pressure change before a storm. She sat up, all senses reaching. A door clicked somewhere below. Softer than Margaret's heels. Softer than Gabriel's stride. She slipped her shoes on, picked up her phone, and opened her door to the hallway's blue dark. She wasn't the only one moving. Across the landing, Grace's door cracked an inch. Grace's silhouette and fingertips appeared in the slice of light. Emily nodded. They both listened. Footsteps, 2 sets, quick and careful, crossed the first-floor foyer. A whisper of a latch. The faintest rumble of a sliding door. The service entrance. Emily texted, "You hear that?" Grace's phone chimed once in her palm. "Basement? Garage? / I'll check Lily." Emily crept down 1 flight to the family hall, every board memorized by feel now, every sound mapped. She reached Lily's door and put her ear against it. The whisper of steady child breath filled the dark. Emily exhaled, then froze again. From farther off, backstairs near the mudroom, came the sound of metal against metal. A toolbox? A lock? She texted Gabriel, "Are you awake?" and got no reply. He slept heavy only when he was wrung out. Lately, he was wrung out a lot. Emily checked the hall camera by Gabriel's office the way he'd shown her. Tiny thumb screen replaying a slice of the house's own memory. Grainy footage showed the mudroom an hour earlier, empty. Then, at 11:42, a flicker, the secondary kitchen door opening a crack. A shadow slid in and across, hugging the wall, too low for the camera to catch a face. A second shadow followed. The screen clock ticked to 11:47. The shadows moved out again. The door eased shut. Emily's heart hammered hard enough to shake her hands. She hurried back to Lily's door, heard the soft child breath still. Good. Good. She turned, then stopped. The night light's glow under the door had dimmed, as if something had been placed in front of it. She knocked softly. Princess? It's Emily. Lily's voice came back, small but steady. I'm okay. Emily's lungs remembered air. Sleep, she said, and meant it as a command to the house as much as the child. In the morning, gray, cold, ordinary, the plan engaged like a machine. Gabriel dressed Lily and kissed her hair extra long. Grace packed a lunch big enough for two. Emily tucked the manila envelope flat into her tote beneath a stack of neatly folded cleaning rags. At the front door, Margaret stood with her coffee as if she'd spent the night there. Going somewhere? She asked, benevolent as a hawk. School drop-off, Gabriel said. Then errands. Lovely, Margaret said. Drive safe. Her eyes flicked to Emily's bag, the way a person's eyes flick to a fly on crystal. Emily kept her face neutral. Gabriel's hand found the door. The outside air that hit them felt sharper than winter usually does, as if the day had edges. Text me when you're with Martinez, Grace murmured as she passed Emily her scarf. I'll keep the home fire on. They made it as far as the car. Gabriel had Lily's chair ramped down when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail, then hit accept on reflex. Gabriel. A woman's voice cooed, brittle under the sugar. My dear. He went still. Margaret? Not this time, the voice said, shifting to something glassy and flat. You're going to do exactly what I say. And if you don't, you'll never see your daughter again. He turned so fast the world tilted. Lily was right there, hand on her rabbit, blinking up at him. Emily's mouth shaped the word who? He put the call on speaker. The sound that came through was a place before it was a voice, a cavernous echo, the creak of old wood, a gull shouting somewhere far away. No, not a gull. A weather vane. Country air. Where are you? Gabriel asked, voice suddenly calm in the way people get when the only other option is screaming. A place you know, the voice said. Your grandfather's old hay barn. 1 hour. Come alone. If you bring anyone, police, the maid, the sainted cook, she disappears. We're not alone, Gabriel said, eyes on Lily, then Emily. His mind worked as quickly as it ever had at any boardroom table, at any crisis desk, even the night Caroline died. You have my child? A soft sound came over the line, a small gasp that could have been a frightened breath or a stifled plea. Gabriel's entire body went cold. You have 1 hour, the voice said. Tick-tock. The call clicked dead. For a heartbeat, the driveway held 3 statues, a father, a daughter, a maid with a tote that suddenly weighed more than lead. Then everything moved at once. Gabriel scooped Lily into the back seat, buckled her in with hands that shook and then stopped shaking because they had a job. Emily slid into the passenger seat and opened her phone's recording app with a thumb that had learned to move without orders. Don't argue, she said to Gabriel in a voice that made him look at her. You go in the front. I go around the side. If they think you're alone, they'll focus on you. I'll get to Lily. Grace calls Martinez as soon as we hit the road. As if summoned, Grace appeared at the door, reading the situation from the white in Gabriel's knuckles. I heard enough, she said, breath steady. I'll call. And I'll follow at a distance. If I don't see you in 20 minutes, I call every siren between here and the county line. Gabriel nodded once, hard. No one is taking my daughter. Emily looked back at Lily. The little girl's eyes were huge and dry, the way eyes get when crying won't help. Emily handed her the rabbit, then Gabriel's old hoodie from the back seat. We're going to play the quiet game, she said. You're the champ. I'll tap your shoulder when it's time to shout. Lily nodded like a soldier receiving orders. Yes, ma'am. As the Whitmore SUV rolled down the long drive, the house they left behind looked exactly the same as it had yesterday and the day before. Clean lines, careful shrubs, a front door that never admitted trouble. In the front window, behind the gauze of a curtain, the faintest movement suggested a figure watching them go. Emily didn't look back. She opened her notes app with the other hand and typed a single line under the list she'd started nights ago. If they use force, we use truth. She hit record on the phone and slid it into the cup holder, its red bar glowing like a heartbeat. Say the word, she told Gabriel, eyes on the road ahead. And I jump? Grace's hand closed around the rear door handle before the SUV rolled an inch. No, she said, voice low and absolute. You cannot take Lily to a meeting with kidnappers. Her eyes met Gabriel's in the side mirror. Inside. Now. The spell broke. Gabriel unclipped the buckle with fingers that finally remembered to shake. Change of plan, Ladybug, he told Lily, lifting her gently. You're staying with Grace. Elevator down, safe room in the pantry, door locked. Lily nodded, brave the way small soldiers are. Emily tossed Gabriel's hoodie over Lily's shoulders and pressed the rabbit into her lap. Quiet game, Emily whispered. You're the champ. Champ, Lily echoed, a whisper of steel. 60 seconds later the house was a machine in motion. Grace rolled Lily into the small reinforced pantry they used during tornado watches, slipped the deadbolt, and moved a kitchen cart in front of the door for good measure. Phone on vibrate, she whispered through the wood. 1 tap means all clear. 2 taps means don't make a sound. 2 little taps came back like Morse code. Emily and Gabriel reconvened in the drive. The manila envelope slid into Emily's tote beneath folded rags. She opened her recording app and set the phone to run, screen dark, mic hot. You go in the front, just you, she said, buckling herself into the passenger seat. I'll bail before we hit the property line and cut through the north lot on foot. Grace follows at a distance and calls Martinez. If you can bait them into saying the quiet part out loud, we'll have the confession. Gabriel nodded once. If anything feels wrong, you run. Only if I can't run with Lily. They peeled off the estate drive and onto County Road, bare cottonwoods, a hawk scribbling lazy circles against the winter sky, the kind of morning rural America uses to convince you it's harmless. Grace's aging Subaru eased out 2 minutes behind, a ghost in the rearview. 10 miles and 24 minutes later, the old Whitmore hay barn lifted out of the frost like a ship run aground. It was as Gabriel remembered from childhood, gray plank sides weathered to driftwood, a rusting weather vane screeching on its spindle, the big sliding door crooked on its rails like a tired mouth. Half a mile back, Emily said. Gabriel braked, and she slid out while the SUV still inched forward, dropping into the ditch and vanishing under the winter weeds. He drove on alone, the way they had asked. From the ditch, Emily hunched and moved, cutting across the pasture toward the barn's north wall where a pane of glass had long ago surrendered to a baseball. She slipped her tote over her shoulder, palmed the cheap kitchen knife she'd brought more for courage than use, and kept low until the barn swallowed her in shadow. Inside, old hay, diesel ghosts, dust motes moving like a galaxy. Voices moved, too, echoing off beams. Right on time, Robert Galvin said, syrup stripped from his tone. He stepped from behind a tractor flatbed with a pistol he wore like he'd practiced. Beside him, Margaret Whitmore looked nothing like the salon-front widow she played in town, hair come half out of its shell, eyes bright with something unhinged. Gabriel lifted his hands, palms out. I came alone. Smart, Margaret said. Shame your judgment comes and goes. Where is Lily? Gabriel asked, letting the calm back into his voice one molecule at a time. Margaret smiled like glass. At home. For now. But we're not here about the child. We're here about the papers. Caroline's little stash. Her gaze flicked to his coat. Where are they? Emily pressed herself against a rib of cedar, phone in her tote recording, pulse thrumming so hard she could feel it in her teeth. She could see Gabriel's profile through a gap, the set of his jaw, the way his shoulders squared exactly the way they did when he told a boardroom he would not be bullied. You killed my wife. Gabriel said quietly. You siphoned my money. You lied about who you are to me. And now you want me to make it easy. Robert's mouth pulled into something that was not a smile. We want you to sign a few documents. Transfer authority. You do that, this ends fast and painless. For whom? Gabriel asked. It didn't end fast and painless for Caroline. Silence, the kind that sucks all the air out of a room. Margaret broke first. Caroline wouldn't let things be. She asked questions. She stirred up trouble. Accidents happen when people can't leave well enough alone. Accidents, Gabriel repeated, so soft it sounded like prayer. Robert gestured with the pistol toward a folding table Emily hadn't clocked yet, papers weighed down with a wrench. Sign. Say it, Gabriel said, gaze never leaving Margaret. Say what you did. Say what you plan to do to my daughter if I don't. Margaret's eyes gleamed. Everything I did to protect what should have been mine. Your father promised me security. Your mother tried to cut me out. I fixed it. And if I have to fix you, I will. I'll put that little pity project in a facility so fast her head will spin. You tampered with the brakes, Gabriel said, voice still even. On Caroline's car. Margaret's chin lifted. She insisted on going to the clerk's office. She insisted on telling you. She could have kept quiet. She chose not to. There. The quiet part was loud now. Robert huffed. Enough memory lane. He slid the pistol's barrel toward the papers. Sign Whitmore. From the north wall, Emily moved. She slipped along the tractor's shadow and dropped behind a stack of rotten hay bales, heart and phone and knife all vibrating at the same frequency. 10 feet ahead, set against a column, duct taped to a chair like an afterthought, sat the contingency she had feared, a woman from a local staffing agency they'd used once, Amy from laundry rotation, gagged and wide-eyed. Insurance. If Gabriel had brought police, they'd have had their leverage anyway. Emily slid the knife under the tape and put one finger to her lips. Amy blinked tears hard enough to knock one loose. Emily drew the blade up an inch, then stopped. Tape makes sound. Sound carries. She mouthed, wait. Amy nodded, the tiniest movement. At the front, Gabriel stepped to the table and picked up the pen. He didn't look down. He looked at Robert. You always wanted to be me, he said. That was your mistake. You should have wanted to be nobody. Then no one would remember your face when this is over. Robert flushed, a quick ugly color, and took half a step closer to show the gun. The barrel crossed sun and shadow, like a pendulum. Gabriel signed the first page with a flourish that was pure theater. There, he said. Now you let us go. Margaret laughed. Don't be stupid, Gabriel. When people know things, they are a problem. Like Caroline, he said. Like me. Like Emily. Emily's name hit the air like a thrown plate. Margaret's head snapped, scanning the shadows. Where is she? Closer than you think, Gabriel said, and turned his body so he was no longer shielding the north wall. Emily lunged. She cut the last run of tape with a single hitching motion and shoved the chair. It toppled into the hay with a muffled whump. Amy rolled, gag scraping off on old straw. Robert turned toward the sound, pistol jerking. Gabriel grabbed a length of 2x4 from the sawhorse and swung. It connected with Robert's forearm in a crack that sounded like breaking bones in a butcher shop. The gun skittered across concrete. Margaret screamed and launched herself at Emily with a ferocity that stalled the world. They hit the ground in a tangle of limbs and old hay, Emily's knife skittering away like a fish. Fingers raked. Nails found skin. Emily saw nothing for a second but Margaret's madness at a distance of inches. The pupils blown, the mouth in a snarl not even human anymore. Get off her! Gabriel roared, and Robert, dizzy but functional, shoved the 2x4 into Gabriel's ribs and knocked him back. He dove for the pistol with his left hand. A single gunshot exploded the barn quiet. For a second no one knew who'd fired. Then everyone did. Grace stood in the yawning doorway, both hands on a deputy's sidearm. Gabriel had forgotten lived in the back of his safe from his one brief year on a neighborhood watch board. She'd borrowed it on her way out the door and apparently didn't believe in warning shots. The round had buried itself in the plank floor 2 inches from Robert's reaching hand. "Leave it," she said, voice like granite. "And step away from my family." Behind her, sirens Dopplered nearer, the sheriff's cruisers and Martinez's unmarked sliding up the gravel like a hymn. "Police!" a deputy barked, shouldering past Grace, weapon trained on center mass. "Hands where we can see them! Now!" Robert froze, palms lifting, face a carefully assembled mask cracking at the edges. Margaret's fury didn't cool so much as calcify. She tore free of Emily's grip and made one last blind reach toward the dropped pistol, as if the laws of physics and law could be bullied by will. The nearest deputy put a round neatly into the plank beside her hand. Splinters leapt. Margaret's breath hitched. She sat back slowly, palms open, blood bright at one knuckle where a nail had torn skin. Detective Martinez moved through the doorway last, not rushing, eyes taking everything in, the gun, the papers, the people, the power lines between them. Gabriel straightened, chest heaving, and pointed to the folding table. "They're documents," he said, bitter. "And I have Caroline's file." He glanced toward the shadow where Emily crouched, phone still recording. "We have them on tape." Martinez nodded once. "We'll take it all." He jerked his chin at a deputy. "Cuff him." To Gabriel, softer. "You okay?" Gabriel looked at Emily. Emily looked at Gabriel. Emily nodded, bruised lip, hay in her hair, eyes bright and very much alive. "We're okay," Gabriel said, and meant it like a vow and a prayer. As Margaret's wrists clicked into steel, she pivoted her head to Gabriel and spit out the last thing she had left. "Ungrateful," she hissed. "You would be nothing without me." Gabriel didn't flinch. "I'm everything in spite of you." Outside, Grace called, "All clear!" toward the pantry of her mind, like Lily could hear her across miles. In the barn's shadow, Emily finally cut the last strip of duct tape from Amy's ankles. "You're safe," she told the shaking woman. "It's over." "Over," Amy echoed, not quite believing yet. It took another hour to sort the rest, statements taken, photos snapped, the pistol bagged, the forged transfers tagged. Martinez tucked Caroline's envelope into an evidence satchel with a care that felt like respect. He turned to Gabriel as the last cruiser door thumped shut on Robert and Margaret. "With this much, they don't see daylight again," he said. "We'll get your money back. But the bigger thing, Caroline. She gets the truth." Gabriel swallowed and nodded, throat working. For a second he looked exactly like the younger man in the happy photos, unguarded, grateful, undone. Grace's Subaru creaked into the yard at last with Lily in the passenger seat, eyes huge, rabbit clutched, ready to bolt. Martinez took one look and stepped away to study the horizon. Grace parked, breathed, and opened the door. "Daddy?" Lily said, voice small but steady. Gabriel bent and scooped her up, pressing his face into her hair the way fathers do when they need proof of the world. "It's okay," he whispered, words making fog against her ear. "It's okay, Ladybug. It's over." Lily leaned back, took inventory. Emily scraped but smiling, Grace solid as bedrock, police lights painting everything red-blue-red. "Are we a family?" "We are," Emily said, brushing hay from Lily's sleeve. "We always were. Now we get to be one without monsters." Lily nodded as if she had ordered the day that way. "Can we go home?" "Soon as they finish," Gabriel said, lifting his eyes to Martinez, who raised a hand in a small salute. "And when we get there, Coco." "Coco truce," Lily said, and this time the words sounded like a victory. On the drive back, fields slid by, brown and winterbare, the hawks still riding lazy circles as if the sky had no idea anything had changed on the ground. Emily stared out the window and let the adrenaline burn off in waves. Gabriel drove with one hand, the other tangled with Lily's. Grace followed steady as a heartbeat. At the big curve where the river comes into view, Emily finally let herself breathe all the way to the bottom of her lungs. She reached into her tote and felt the manila envelope under the rags like a spine. Truth, heavy and plain. Enough to hold the house up. Behind them, in a gray barn full of dust and ghosts, the last words of Margaret Whitmore's reign dried on the planks like spilled water. Ahead of them, the Whitmore estate's slate roof caught a band of winter sun and flared like a promise. Tomorrow would be paperwork and locks changed and a child's chair angled just so beside a leather sofa. But tonight there would be cocoa in the library, and laughter soft and disbelieving, and a girl who had been taught to crawl learning, at last, that everyone gets held. In the days after the barn, the Whitmore estate learned how to breathe. Deputies walked the driveway, evidence techs boxed up forged ledgers. Detective Martinez came and went with calm competence, and a legal pad that never seemed to run out of paper. By the end of the week, a judge denied bail. The charges set like concrete: kidnapping, attempted murder, murder in the first degree for Caroline's death, conspiracy, fraud. Margaret Whitmore and Robert Galvin went from movers of other people's lives to docket numbers and orange jumpsuits. Martinez sat with Gabriel in the library on a gray Tuesday and slid a form across the table. Restitution's in motion. We've frozen the siphon accounts. It'll take time, but you're going to get back what was taken. His voice gentled on the last line. And Caroline's file? It made the difference. After the door shut, the house sounded different, less like marble and money, more like rooms remembering what people were for. Gabriel replaced the locks, put Lily's second wheelchair in her room for good and bolted it in place, and had an elevator tech come out to smooth the hitch in the cab. He apologized to Emily more times than was useful. She let him, and then she put his hand on the back of Lily's chair and said, "Push," and they went outside. Winter softened at the edges. The day it finally broke, sunlight fell across the kitchen like a blessing. Emily was at the stove making pancakes too fancy for a weekday. Blueberries, lemon zest, the good butter Grace hoarded in the back of the fridge. When Gabriel came in with a look on his face she hadn't seen before, nervous and sure at once. "Emily." He said her name like an answer. Then he dropped to one knee right there on the tile, pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and flipped it open to a simple ring that caught the light like a quiet promise. "I know we've been through a fire. I don't want to wait to live the life on the other side. Will you marry me?" Emily laughed and cried at the same time. "Yes." It felt like a word she'd been saving for years. "Did I miss it?" came a delighted squeal from the hall. Lily, fresh from the elevator, wheeled in like a parade. "Did he do it for real?" Emily held out her hand. Lily inspected the ring like a jeweler, and then threw her arms up. "We're really going to be a family." 2 Saturdays later, under the oak where winter first turned, the garden became a chapel. Grace hung white streamers between branches and set mason jars of daisies on low tables. Neighbors came, and a handful of Gabriel's oldest friends, and Martinez stood in the back with his tie crooked, pretending to have something in his eye. A local justice of the peace, Henry Moore, who'd sworn in half the county in one row or another, cleared his throat and smiled. The music started, just a guitar, played by a guy who fixed Lily's wheelchair brakes last fall and knew chords better than he knew sheet music. First down the path came Lily, scattering petals from a basket across the flagstones, grinning so big the sun seemed to come from her. Then Emily, in a simple white dress with her hair pinned back by a single flower Grace had stolen from the florist's throwaway pile. Gabriel, in a navy suit he finally had tailored, looked like the man from the old photos again, only older, steadier. Henry's words were simple because simple fit. Gabriel went first. "When you came into this house," he told Emily, "you helped my daughter laugh, and you taught me that strength doesn't raise its voice. I promised to keep us safe, to listen when it's hard, to make pancakes on Saturdays even if they're terrible." Emily's turn. "You gave me a home and a name that means chosen, not just hired. I promised to love Lily like my own and you like the best part of myself. And I promised to keep lemon zest in the fridge." Henry nodded, satisfied, and did the line he'd said so many times it felt new anyway. "By the authority vested in me by the great state of..." He named it, and then, "You may kiss your wife." They did, and Lily whooped, and Grace cried openly now, and Martinez pretended to check a text. They toasted with cocoa in mugs and a single bottle of sparkling cider Lily got to pop because life had already included enough explosions. Spring arrived. The county returned most of the money, the rest would come in time. The district attorney decided the case didn't need a trial. The confessions on Emily's recording and the paper in Caroline's envelope were plenty. Plea deals turned into the kind of sentences that close books. A memorial service for Caroline happened in the garden in April. They planted a maple for her where Lily could see it from the library window. Life, always a practical thing, filled the spaces legal paperwork left. Emily left her agency job and took over the house on her terms. Household manager, not maid, and at night she started classes at the community college toward an associate's in early childhood education. "You already do the work," Grace said, and drove her to registration herself. By summer, the school district hired Emily as a paraeducator in Lily's classroom 3 days a week. "You don't have to be in my class," Lily said, aggrieved. "I want you to be in my class." So they compromised, some days together, some days apart. Gabriel learned how to leave the office by 5 and how to say, "No, that meeting can be an email." He put a family calendar on the fridge that actually got used. He went to therapy, alone and with Lily, and when he said goodnight he no longer had to check the locks twice to mean it. The portrait over the library mantel, a Whitmore long dead who had never been as stern as the painter made him, watched the new rhythms and seemed to approve. One afternoon in May, Emily's phone buzzed with a call from the school. "Mrs. Whitmore?" said the principal, Jane Cooper, who had taught first grade for 20 years before taking the big office. "It's nothing urgent. I just wanted to tell you something about Lily." Emily's heart still did the old jump. She let it settle. "Is she okay?" "She's more than okay. We had a new student transfer in. Caleb, 7, uses a chair too. He was having a rough first recess." Lily rolled over, introduced herself, taught him how to play horse with a lowered hoop, and showed him which hallway ramp is faster when you've got a backpack. Before the bell, she told him, "A wheelchair isn't a problem, it's just a different way to move." "I've never seen a kid do that with such authority." "Thank you for calling," Emily said when her throat worked again. "I'll make sure she knows you noticed." That night they celebrated like Whitmore's now celebrated, home. Grace made chicken pot pie the way Lily liked, with the pastry cut into stars. Gabriel lifted his glass. "To Lily," he said, "for making the world easier for the next person through the door." "To Emily," Grace added, "for making this house a home." "To Grace," Emily said, "for being our heartbeat." Lily lifted her cocoa. "To us." Summer unfurled like a promise kept. Lily learned to swim with a coach who believed in core strength and joy. Gabriel taught her checkers properly, and then pretended to be surprised when she started to beat him. Emily passed the final with a 96, came home in a college hoodie 3 sizes too big, and danced in the kitchen with Lily while Grace banged a spoon on a pot like it was a parade. A year rounded the curve. On a Sunday morning as mild as a hymn, they were all outside, Gabriel and Lily at a checkerboard under the oak, Emily on her knees in the dirt transplanting marigolds, Grace on the porch snapping green beans into a metal bowl with a sound that said childhood. "Dad?" Lily asked as she kinged one of her own pieces with a flourish. "Do you ever think about Margaret anymore?" Gabriel considered the board, the tree, the house that had both hurt him and held him. "Less and less," he said. "Mostly I feel relieved. She can't touch us. And I try to remember that forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them back in." Lily nodded like she'd already figured that out. "Good. Because our family is perfect the way it is." Emily sat back on her heels, dirt on her gloves, sunlight on her face. "Perfect's a big word," she said, smiling. "Okay," Lily amended, eyes dancing. "Maybe not perfect. But exactly right." Grace clucked. "Exactly right is better than perfect anyway." Later, when the marigolds were in and the beans were snapped and the checkerboard had witnessed a comeback no one would ever admit was intentional, Gabriel pulled Emily into the shade and kissed her the way husbands do when they remember the kitchen floor proposal, and the oak tree vows at the same time. Lily pretended to be scandalized and then asked if they could all go for ice cream. Deal, Gabriel said. Winner picks the flavor. I won, Lily reminded them. You always do, Emily said. On the way to the car, Lily paused at the maple tree they'd planted for Caroline. The leaves riffled in a little wind. She touched the trunk with 2 fingers. Hi, Mom, she said, quiet and sure. Guess what? We're okay. They drove down the long curve of the driveway with the windows cracked, summer air finding the places winter had sealed. Behind them, the Whitmore house held steady, no longer a museum of grief, not a fortress, just a place where people lived. In the library, sunlight lay across a leather sofa and one small chair angled just so. On the fridge, the calendar squares were full of handwriting. On the second floor, a nightlight waited to paint a thin strip of gold under a bedroom door. When they got home, there would be a game to finish and homework to half-dread and a grocery list on the counter. There would be laughter. There would be bedtime, a father reading, a mother tucking, a child asking one extra question to stall the dark. And when the house went quiet, it would be a different kind of quiet than before, the kind that comes when a place knows exactly who it belongs to.